Hello friends, welcome back for some more of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included Spaced Out DLC. We're on part 37. I really think we're going to get into the 50s with this series. It's going to be pretty long, so that was the reason that all this is labeled 2024, even though some of this was released in 2023. So, yes, I am living in the future, so welcome to the future. Alright, so let's talk about kind of our overall goals right now. Our goals are basically going to be continuing to settle on other asteroids. So I've got Travaldo out here in the exploration rocket, just finishing up some builds to protect him from radiation before he starts exploring any of these nearby tiles. And as soon as we figure out what's at these tiles and we can fly him around a little bit to figure out where to go, we will go to that next asteroid. But back home, we're just collecting all of our resources, which are just about ready. We could probably do with a little bit more refined metals, so I could run another shipping rocket back to the metal asteroid to grab some more. But yeah, in the meantime, there's still some things we can do at our home base. And this is something that I've never talked about before, so let's talk about it now. Saturn critter traps is what this video is going to be about. And on the metal asteroid, if you mine out this bottom area, you might have found quite a few Saturn critter traps. Seeds anyway, just kind of chilling down here. So if you did, definitely take them back and start to set up something to produce a silly amount of hydrogen. This is one of the most broken things in the game in terms of how powerful it is. So we're going to take advantage of that, and we are going to create a setup here that's going to give us a ridiculous amount of hydrogen that we can then send to other planets for really efficient energy. So let's do that. Saturn critter traps need to grow in a very cold space, so I'm just going to kind of carve out a space here for them. Maybe something like this. This is probably a little bit larger than it really needs to be, but we may need to expand this future or down the line, so let's just prepare now. So I'm just going to set something up here that is expected to be very cold, and I'm going to put a double liquid lock here like we've talked about before, which is kind of the build of choice if you ever need to make sure that there is absolutely no temperature transfer between two sides, but your duplicates can get through. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So I'm just going to set up something like this. On the side, I'm just going to be setting up a ladder and a fire pole so my duplicates can get up and down this area once we start getting all that stuff set up. And I'm just going to create an area for us to plant our Saturn critter traps. I'm pretty sure we have 18 of them, so we'll just kind of plant enough here and we'll see where we wind up. So, what I'm going to do is just put down a whole bunch of hydroponic farm tiles, and those are just going to be where our Saturn critter traps are going to go, and they will require polluted water. More specifically, very cold polluted water, or some type of thing that can keep them cold enough to consume the polluted water. So I'm just going to use our vent here, or rather our geyser, whatever they're called, the thing on the map that makes stuff. That's the most official way to say it. So if we do that, we're just going to set up our Saturn critter trap seeds down here, but we're going to make it a little bit of a fancy setup just to make sure that this area stays cool. And we also need to make sure to set something up so that we can spawn something that these Saturn critter traps can eat. Like it sounds, they will eat critters, so if I were to feed them hatches, they would produce hydrogen from that. I don't want to feed them hatches because they're really valuable. I'd really rather not do that. I don't want to really feed them Drecos or anything like that either, so let's talk about a critter that we haven't really talked about before, which is going to be Morbs. So we're going to create a little bit of a weird setup here, and this setup is going to be consisting of a mechanized airlock, and on top of that airlock is going to be an outhouse. The reason that you have the outhouse on top of an airlock is we're going to need some kind of automation to make sure that these doors open and close every so often. It's like every couple cycles to make sure to reset the building, because the Morbs will only spawn if you have reset the building recently, which is like one of the ways you can reset it is by stopping and reloading the game, which is really weird. This kind of feels like a bug to me, so I don't feel too bad about doing it this way and resetting the building, because it makes sense for the Morbs to just consistently spawn from it if it's something that is already filled up. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to set up something like this. Let me make sure to wall this off actually so my duplicates stop passing through there really quickly. And then these are going to be the only places that my duplicants are allowed to use the bathroom now. So I need to also check to make sure that all the bathrooms inside of the rockets are disabled. So I've got that one disabled, got this one disabled, and then I'm going to not let my duplicants use these bathrooms anymore. So I'll just deny them the ability to walk left into this door, which means that the only place that they're allowed to really use the bathroom anymore is this outhouse. And as soon as we get this walled off, they'll stop passing through here over and over. So if we do that, this will be the first step to getting our setup going, because my duplicants will eventually fill this up, and I want to set this to super low priority because I don't want them to clean this. I want them to use this until it's ready to be emptied, and then leave it alone. If they do that, we will get consistent morb spawns from this, and those morbs can be the food that we feed to our Saturn critter traps. Now that we have some of these going, let's get the Saturn critter traps planted. So here we go. It's weird that it only says Saturn critter in the menu. I never noticed that. It's clearly a Saturn critter trap. Also, their UI is like going off the screen here. This causes all kinds of problems in the game, as you can tell. Okay, so since these Saturn critter traps expect a very low temperature, -1 Celsius, or rather -0.1 Celsius down to -90 Celsius is the range. As long as we can sit them in that range, we should be good. But there's some things that we need to do in order to get this cooling going, and like I mentioned, we can just use this polluted water from the thing that makes polluted water that's very cold. So we are going to cut off the supply of that to wherever it's going now, and we're going to make sure to send it to this setup instead. So I'm just going to borrow it from this line, and by that I mean forcefully take it, because that's how you borrow things, right? I'm going to be using ceramic pipes here, by the way, because I want as much of the coolness of the water to get down here. I don't really know how else to say that. Coolness. It's not like heat, it's the exact opposite, but yeah. So I want to use ceramic pipes as much as I possibly can. Just kind of run it over here, and then I'm going to build a handful of liquid reservoirs here. So maybe just something like that. We won't be able to fill up all this space exactly because we need a couple of gas pumps here. I guess we could actually stack them on top of each other, so we could probably put one more. But I'm just going to set it up in a way that we have plenty of excess polluted water here, so that we can kind of store it all in these tanks for the time being. So my duplicants will get on building all that stuff so that we start to pump this in here. And just to make sure that this is all kind of filled up and we have enough for when the geyser is off, we can get that going. So, now that my duplicants should be able to use these outhouses, they keep not doing what I want them to do. So, in order to prevent them from constantly messing up the doors, which is something that they unfortunately do a lot, I'm just going to hook up some automation wire here. And that automation wire will basically force the door to be shut. They won't be allowed to open it or close it anymore. Because every time they come over here, they're like, hey, I need to use the bathroom. Oh, let me instantly ruin it. Yay. So, because they're doing this, and because I forgot to set that part up, they're probably going to be making a mess around the base for right now. Or I guess I could just open this up for the time being so they can at least use it. Oh, these duplicants are so dumb. Okay, so we've got our outhouses going. Let's clear out the rest of these really quickly. I need to get some space for this, and we will just rebuild some of this if we need it. So let me get all the other buildings and stuff out of the way. And we're going to need some time for our duplicants to fill up these outhouses anyway. But hopefully once they get those doors closed and they stop doing this dumb stuff, they'll be able to actually use these outhouses. If you're really worried about them cleaning their hands before they go back out, you could add a sink here if you really cared. But I kind of don't. Like, the only time they should be getting exposed to any germs, at least food poisoning germs, is if their hands are dirty or if their food's dirty when they're eating it. And because they're supposed to clean their hands when they come in the kitchen, that should be totally taken care of. So I'm not too worried about it. Alright, so now we've got this all getting filled up. What we're going to need, though, is I want to make sure that we're only drawing water when we actually need it. So I'm just going to put a liquid shutoff here, and that liquid shutoff is going to be what's responsible for filling up these tanks. So let's see, I want to hook up an automation wire that's going to go from this tank all the way over to the end, and notice how it's the last one in order. So that if all the other tanks are filled up, this one will be the last one to fill, only because it's the last one on the line that's actually running water into the tanks. So, Now that we have that, we're just going to need to create a loop here of very cold water. So as it comes out, I want it to come over here to the left, the same direction that it went in. And I want it to go down to where the Saturn critter traps are going to be. Then I'm going to switch over to a different type of metal. If I have enough aluminum, I'd rather do that here, but I kind of don't, so I'm just going to use copper. And I'm just going to loop it down and around like this. Only because I want a consistent flow of water going around here that's going to be cold enough to cool all this stuff down. And then at every point that I want it to go into the actual critter traps, I'm just going to kind of drop it like that. Once it's done with that, I'll just switch back to regular pipe. And we need to check to make sure that this water is not getting too hot. If it is getting too hot, which it eventually will, we should send it back down into our normal setup that we had going for all of our polluted water, which should have been going down to this area to get warmed up and exchange its temperature with all this cold, or rather really hot water down here. So we'll just kind of rejoin it into that pipe and get rid of all the extra pipe that was here that was originally coming out of this. So if I just kind of follow the lines, just going to destroy this until it runs all the way back down to the spot that we need. There we go. There. And then where we want to check to be sure that we are getting rid of all the really hot water that we don't want anymore, I'll just use some regular pipe. I guess we should probably use insulated pipes. This is still going to be relatively cold. I'll just switch back over to igneous rock and just kind of conjoin it back to where it originally was. So there, something like that. What I want to check is I want to check to see if this is too hot to really kind of cool this place down anymore. I don't want to continuously circulate polluted water that's too warm for these critter traps. So I'm just going to put a temperature sensor right before this, which is more specifically a liquid pipe thermosensor to check the temperature of whatever's inside of there. And if it's warm enough, I will have it be stolen by this liquid shutoff and kind of go down the line and back into our water system. If it's not too hot, we will continue it along this line. I'm going to put a bridge here to force it to go a direction, otherwise it's going to start getting confused with the rest of our setup. Then I'm going to come back up here, and I will just have it rejoin the line using the same bridge trick to make sure that if there's more water that needs to come in here, that's prioritized over our loop. Our loop will just run whenever these tanks are sufficiently full. Speaking of sufficiently full, the automation settings I'm going to set on this, let's do like, I don't know, 60-20. Sure, something like that. Those are basically the ranges that we will send automation signals to allow water to flow through here correctly. So let me give my duplicants a little bit of time to get all this stuff built since there's a lot of open projects right now. We'll kind of skip ahead. I'll get the rest of these things planted. And as we get these outhouses more filled up by my duplicants, which they should be able to use now, let me deprive them of the other bathroom usage. Then we should be getting closer and closer to the point of getting these things operational. But this is just going to take a little bit of time. So I'll just kind of let my duplicants work here in the meantime. Okay, made a little bit more progress here. My outhouses are getting close to being filled up, which is exactly what we want. As far as everything that's in here, some of the Saturn critter traps are growing. This initial burst can be a little bit of a lie because we still need a lot of energy in here to cool all this stuff down. So I don't expect these things to stay alive for too long. They'll go back to being dormant again until we can cool them back down. The ones that are up here are a lot warmer for whatever reason. I guess either the seeds or the water or something got down there and really cooled these ones down initially. So, I don't know. Doesn't really make that much sense to me, but so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are dumping any polluted water that is too warm, because we haven't set that up yet. So if this is ever above, like, -4 Celsius, I will allow this to turn on and it will start sending it down. Otherwise, the loop here is just that the water is going to be consistently going in and out of the tanks whenever there is not flow on this line. So basically, if the water is ever too hot, it's going to come down here, get stolen away, and be sent off for any other processing. The rest of it is just going to cool this area down, and I am just going to leave the oxygen that was in here, only because we do need some kind of medium to make sure that the Saturn critter traps and the surrounding things can be cooled down by this water. these things actually might stay cold enough. So that'll be a good, and it'll kind of accelerate this build a little bit if we can get that. But before these start producing anything, we definitely need to set up our liquid locks. We need to set up our suits. We also need to make sure that these duplicants do not empty these outhouses. That's pretty critical to this. So I'm just going to put some pneumatic doors here. And when it is time for them to be restricted from this, basically, this one looks like it's going to get there first. We just won't let them pass through these doors. I'm also going to prepare to set up a second pair of outhouses here, which we will set up after we block off the other ones. So these ones we can just set to be open, but when it's time for them to be banned from there, I can just not let them go left, and that'll block them off from here, and that'll consistently spawn the Morbs, and we can set up the rest of this here in just a second. So, I need to get suits in here. I don't want them breathing all the rest of this oxygen. This is about the pressure that I want. So I'm just going to start setting up some stations here really quickly, as I guess we don't really need to be paused. We don't need that many. This setup will actually kind of run itself over time, but if I need to do any construction or whatever in here, might as well have a handful of suits that can come in and out. So there we go. I'll set up my second set of outhouses here, but I don't... Actually, I'll wait a second. I don't want them to be used until these ones are actually all the way filled up, because if I block this off, then I still want them to be able to use anything else. Or more specifically, the inverse is like, I don't want them to be blocked off from using this one, or sorry, this... I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Basically, if I were to put two outhouses here, if this one got filled up first, that would be a problem, because then it would also block off access to this one. Yikes, that was rough. Okay, whatever. So get the rest of this stuff all filled up for my suits. I'll get these filled up with the double liquid lock here and create the same little, I guess, vacuum in between here. Let me just disable this really quickly so my duplicants can still use the bathroom, because I just realized that they cannot right now. So, let's actually just keep going until this gets all filled up, and then I'll show you the rest of the setup. So there we go. Ari is going to be the last person to use this. There. Now that it's set up like this, I want to set these doors to not allow them to go left. And if anybody ever comes to try to clean these, I need to stop them. The rest of this, I'm just going to go ahead and set up another outhouse right here. And I'm just going to do 2. I think that should be plenty to keep the Morbs flowing through here. These ones are actually already getting pretty cold, so this cooling loop is doing a good job. Alright, then we just need our suits to be delivered here so they stop breathing on my air. Don't you hate it when people do that? And we can, I guess, we will need to get our automation wire hooked up here too. We could probably also do our setup for opening and closing these at a certain time, so let's do that. Let me get our automation here. I'm going to be using a timer sensor, and our timer sensor is just going to be set to open the doors every couple days so that these get reset at the time we want them to be reset. So something like this ought to do it. In a couple cycles, a Morb will spawn out of here, and it looks like these are already waking up, so they will get eaten by the Saturn critter traps, and they'll start producing all of our hydrogen. So let's see, can they reach everything? Yes, this one is just about filled up as well. Let me get... Oh, nice nails. Great. That's exactly what I wanted you to do. Thanks. Right in the spot that we were about to set up a liquid lock. By the way, the liquid that we want to put in here, we want to make sure is not going to freeze. So I might use this brine. I think, yeah, this is running right now. So I'm going to steal from this line. Where's this go? Man, this is a symphony of pipes here. Let's see. Looks like it goes down here. And I think I could just grab it from there. So I'm just going to grab some brine. And I'm going to use that to fill up these 2 liquid locks. With some liquid that we know is not going to freeze by all the stuff that's going to be in there. If this was regular water, this would definitely freeze, and that would be a problem. So I will want to do that and make sure that that is not an issue. Let me go ahead and enable this now so that my duplicants can just use their suits. Let's set up our timer sensor here really quickly. So I want to set the mode to cycles, and I want to keep it closed for enough time that a Morb can spawn. It's just slightly over 2 days, so I guess we could be a little bit generous and just do like 2.05. And then the amount of time that I need the door to open is really short. We could just do like 0.05 or something like that. Maybe even less, 0.03, sure. That'll just reset it every so often. and then it'll stay closed for a couple cycles with these full outhouses. And as long as it is closed with these full outhouses, the morbs will spawn after a couple days. So that should do it. I guess from this point we would just be waiting for these things to get filled up, and we'll be waiting for morbs to spawn. So let me give it a little bit of time so we can see this whole thing in action. In the meantime, my duplicants will just be continuing to fill up outhouses, and as soon as I fill them all up, I will just allow them access back into my bathroom. So we'll give them a second to get all caught up. Okay, here we go. Ready to watch a morb get eaten? Yeah, he's putting out some polluted oxygen, but his fate is sealed. He's about to die. And our doors just opened, by the way, to reset all of these. So this one just spawned, and because it did that whole, like, banner rolling up and unfurling again, the building is now reset, so in another couple cycles, another morb is going to spawn out of there. But this one should get eaten here in just a second, as we just watch the suspense here for no reason. Aw, come on, get eaten. I'll be your friend. Oh, you're mean. There we go, yoink. Saturn Critter Trap is now digesting that morb. What's going to happen as this is digesting is every once in a while it will put out some hydrogen. That hydrogen is actually going to be pretty warm, which is one of the reasons why we want to consistently circulate this polluted water to help keep things cool. But now that it's going to be producing hydrogen, we can start to set up all of our ventilation to get this stuff ready to go for the energy needs that it's going to be satisfying. So let's just put up a couple of pumps like this. I guess we could do this a little bit better. Let me put one over here too. And then I will set up a little bit of automation here just to make sure that we are actually pumping hydrogen and not something else. Now, because hydrogen always is the thing that floats to the top, basically, that'll mean that we can assure that this is sitting in hydrogen before we start pumping it, and we won't be pumping any other gases out by accident. So just going to connect a element filter, gas element sensor basically, up to a filter gate, and then connect it through to my two pumps like that. We still need to wait for all this stuff to get filled up too. So the brine's coming in slowly, but it will eventually fill all this stuff up. And I would put just regular water in here because it's a lot more accessible, but it'll freeze because this area is going to be so cold eventually. So yeah. So once we get those two things up, there's a couple of ways we could do this. I don't believe there's any kind of pressure limit here because there is no pressure limit on the critter traps, and I don't believe there's pressure limits on getting morbs to spawn, unless there's something I don't know. So I think we can just kind of have it sit there like that, and then we can set up a bunch of generators here that can be used to consume all of this hydrogen. This will also eventually be sent out to other asteroids via our interplanetary launcher, which we'll do in a later video. But that's going to be the whole idea for any of the planets that have a hard time with power. That's how we can supply them with power, is just send all this hydrogen out. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. Let me give this a little bit more time to get all filled up so we can see the whole system running here in just a bit. And we will wait for the Saturn Critter Trap to start putting out some of this hydrogen too. We're almost ready to close all this stuff down, by the way. And this should be plenty of morbs to get all this stuff satisfied. So yeah, almost done. One last little part here just so we can see the full cycle. Alright, a few more morbs have spawned, and these should all get eaten as well, which means that it's been a couple days. Doors open again, reset our outhouses. We're back on our way. So yeah, this will start producing a silly amount of hydrogen. There's already been some produced from this first one. There we go, yoink. Should be a couple more here. But yeah, this will start producing a ridiculous amount of hydrogen. So the settings that I have here is just a gas element sensor that's checking for hydrogen gas. And if it's in hydrogen gas for long enough by virtue of this gas, or rather this filter, then it will wait for 60 seconds. Yoink, another one too. It'll wait for 60 seconds before it allows these pumps to turn on. When they're allowed to turn on, they'll start feeding all of our hydrogen generators. It's going to be connected up to a smart battery, which I'm just going to set this to 9030, which I believe is the same as our natural gas, since they're both about the same type of resource right now. It's basically just something that happens for free because it comes out of a geyser. The Saturn Critter Traps aren't directly that, but they basically are turning our polluted water into hydrogen right now. So Yeah, there you go. This is about to be fully closed off here. Then we can start pumping out the middle so that there's no temperature exchange between the two of them. And if you need cooling from this, I do have a reservoir that's kind of right next to it that has some extra pipes that are coming down here. So if I need some cooling, I can always do that. Just kind of loop something around right here to cool this area off. I'm going to see how much I can get from the hydrogen gas being just kind of sitting out here, because it's already going to be cooled down by virtue of needing the Saturn critter traps to be cold. So yeah, that'll hopefully help out. Anyway, that's pretty much the whole setup. Here we go. Now that this is all closed off, we can just kind of vacuum this out. And yeah, that's the whole thing. So it'll just keep on going for a long, long time, and I'm sure within, I don't know, 20, 30 cycles, you're going to just be laughing at how much hydrogen gets produced out of here. It is crazy, and it'll be a lot. So we will set up some systems a little bit later to be sending this hydrogen out to some other planets so we can get some extra energy on those ones. And so we don't need to ship something like coal or something way less efficient. So yeah, that'll be the plan. Trevarlo's still hanging out here in the exploration rocket, just kind of looking for these other asteroids that we can settle on. Haven't really found anything interesting yet, so I'm just going to keep kind of driving him around in a circle until we find an asteroid that we want to settle on. And that'll be in the next couple videos. The next one immediately, we're going to be building out our second rocket, or rather our third rocket, I guess it is, to go settle on another asteroid. No, this is the second one. Okay, whatever. Let me just correct myself a few more times. So yeah, we're just going to be building that up. We're going to be loading it up here. We've seen all that stuff happen before, so I don't know that I'm going to be doing too much. I'll probably just show the done build, which should look really similar to things we've done before. And then we will fly out and we will settle on the other asteroid in the next video. So yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll be back with another part here really soon. Take care.